Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to understand top 5 important JavaScript coding questions which are generally asked in the interviews. So let's begin. First question. Find the frequency of the elements in array. I already wrote the code in the online compiler so that without wasting time, we could understand the code. Frequency of the elements means how many times same elements comes. So here I created an array in which Java string is repeated twice. We are passing the array to the function as an argument. Now I created one empty object in which we will store the element as a key and frequency as a value. Then I am mapping the array and check if the element is not inside the object, then we are setting the value as 1. Otherwise, we are increasing the count by 1 every one we comes across same element. Then return the object. Now if you see on the right section Java is coming twice, rest every other element is 1. Second question. To check a string with balanced brackets. We define an object called brackets that maps opening brackets to their matching closing brackets. This makes it easy to check if a given character is an opening or closing bracket. We define an array called stack to keep track of the opening brackets we encounter in the string. We loop through each character in the string using a for loop. If the current character is an opening bracket, or we push it onto the stack. If the current character is a closing bracket, or we pop the last opening bracket off the stack and check if it matches the closing bracket. If it doesn't match, we know that the brackets are not balanced and we return false. After we've looped through all the characters in the string, we check if there are any remaining brackets in the stack. If there are, we know that the brackets are not balanced and we return false. If we've made it this far without returning false, then the brackets must be balanced and we return true. Third question. To find the pairs of array element for which sum is equal to given target value, toSum problem. We define a function called toSum that takes two parameters, an array of integers called nums, and a target value called target. We define an empty object called map. We will use this object to keep track of the indices of the elements in the array as we iterate through it. We loop through each element in the array using a for loop. For each element, we calculate its complement by subtracting it from the target value. We check if the complement is already in the map object. If it is, we have found a pair of elements whose sum is equal to the target value, so we return their indices as an array. If the complement is not in the map object, we add the current element and its index to the map object. If we have looped through the entire array without finding a pair of elements whose sum is equal to the target value, we return an empty array. In the first example, the array 2, 7, 11, 15 contains two elements whose sum is equal to the target value 9, the elements at indices 0 and 1, which are 2 and 7. Therefore, the function returns the array 0, 1. In the second, the function returns 1, 2, since those are the indices of the pairs of elements whose sum is equal to the target value. Fourth question. Remove duplicates from an array and return unique values in O(n) complexity. In this script, we use an object to keep track of which values we have seen before. We iterate over the input array ARR, and for each item in the array, we check if it exists in the object. If it doesn't exist, we add it to the unique RR array and mark it as seen in the object by setting the value of the property with the item value as the key to true. If it does exist, we skip it and move on to the next item. This approach has a time complexity of O(n), because we are iterating over the input array only once and performing constant time operations, checking if an item exists in an object, adding an item to an array, and setting a property on an object for each item in the array. Last question. Print all duplicate elements of an array. Define an array with some elements, including duplicates. Create an empty object called count to store the count of each element in the array. Loop through each element of the array and check if it already exists in the count object. If the element already exists in the count object, increment its count. Otherwise, initialize its count to 1. Loop through the count object and print out any elements that have a count greater than 1. The output would be 2 and 3 elements that appear more than once in the array.